Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Season 2, Episode 3. I know this episode, or this review, is a little bit shorter, but I'm kind of seeing where things are at, and plus also, I'm gonna finally just give myself a little bit of a break somehow, just because, really, I've just kind of been going through kind of like the same kind of things over and over and over. And plus, also, I just want to give myself a break just because I've been going into some very difficult things, and I'm sure that uh, tomorrow I'll be challenging myself even more to find something unique or something that'll be wildly, weirdly, goofily be a thing that I'm to place upon myself via the next whichever days. So, with that said, let's go into talking about Season 2, Episode 3. So, in this episode, it seems that I don't know who exactly we probably cover most. I think for this one, they just kind of hey, let's just kind of see, it kind of feels like a dartboard kind of thing where, they just want to see, where they want to cover the most. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of time being carried by any person. It just kind of feels evened out. So we kind of showcase Monica here and see what's kind of going on in her life. And it seems that her and this physical therapist that she's seeing, that we kind of end off on that other episode with, it seems that this guy is to seemingly put maybe the moves on Monica, and Monica's just like, well, yeah, but I'm married. And so the guy's like, well, I saw the ring, to just be like, okay, where is that exactly going to lead at some point? So we have that going on, and so we also have a cluster of things either going on with Casey, things going on with Jamie and his campaigning. We have uh, really just kind of Beth kind of used kind of sparingly here, talking to Rip and see where Rip's head is at. We have Jimmy and Avery who are having their own little story for this episode, which is kind of interesting, giving us a little bit more backstory on Jimmy. We also seem to have Governor Perry, who is to get into the mix with Jamie and to just kind of push him to a certain kind of direction to see if Jamie is to continue to be interested in wanting to campaign himself to this attorney general's position. And one thing that I forgot about from the last episode, because I didn't think it really was going to be focused upon this episode, which it really didn't. We have a candidate to go against Jamie, which is Cassidy Reed, and in the other episode, we have her mention how she is to kind of give wounded soldiers and stuff like that. She was to go off and try to come with figuring out a way to get guys who are kind of to deal with post traumatic stress, get them on horses and stuff like that. Try to therapy any kind of soldier in some kind of either physical or mental capacity of just kind of working through whatever they need to work through I guess horses, I believe is what the girl used to say. So we had Cassidy, who seems to be this prime, man, this girl, she's good looking, but then she also has some good intentions. So in this episode, we start seeing her being placed in commercials and stuff like that in this episode. But that's about it. I'm assuming that this girl is going to possibly be like, I don't know if she's going to forcibly be this like running against nobody, or running against Jamie. We'll see how that all plays out in the other episodes. So we have Rainwater and we have Jenkins, who are to seemingly seal the deal on their whole casino venture. But we're probably going to see how long that lasts, because we have some newcomers in this, the Beck brothers, and they're going to be throwing some wrenches into that whole casino, and we'll see how that all is to play out in this episode. Other than that, I think that's all that I want to go into cryptic like sense for this episode. So yeah, let's just go into spoilers about this one. So double five. Let's otherwise go into spoilers about this one. If there's anything that I probably forgot about in other episodes, like I know there's the one episode where John was to go and like buy these horses, and was like looking at him like, this one looks good, and like Rip is like, this one looks good, and so on and so forth, and like we didn't see any kind of like payout of that whole moment where they're kind of looking at horses and breeds and stuff like that. But like, of course, I don't think we were really just supposed to. I think that was just kind of them just having something to do per an episode. So let's go into it. Let's go into that double five. I haven't already. Let's just go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time again to spoil this episode. So Beth kind of, yeah, she has very little to do in this episode. So like, I think I will have to go and talk about certain other characters and tie Beth in, because I don't think she individually has something going on in this one. I think certain characters do, and Beth is to be there to kind of give her stretch of dialogue or whatever she needs to go and do at some point. So so let's focus on. I actually liked the Avery Jimmy episode, so I think we'll focus on that. So Jimmy and Avery are to go off to get certain supplies for, of course, the barn, and because Casey is to, of course, take point and is to tell the guys where they're supposed to go. And so John is to tell like Casey, it's like, well, hey, like you can just go and tell the guys like what they're supposed to do, but then come back in and I'll kind of show you some ropes on some things. And so Casey is to kind of tell the guys what to do, and they start questioning it and questioning it and questioning it. And so Rip is like, you know what, shut up, like just do what he told you to do. And so they start going off, and Rip is like, you know what, if you're going to open up for questions, like, the questions are never going to end. So what's happening is Casey is just to be like, well, like, how about you go on and you tell them, like, at some points, like, where to go or what exactly to do. And Rip is like, no, like, if anything, I'm just here to take what you're to tell me and make it seem like I'm going to have to like convey to them like that you had said this, and so on and so forth. So like, even if Rip has something to like to have his work go a little bit smoother, he's gonna go and think of what Casey would want, and that's the main thing here. So Rip later on is to, of course, be with Beth, and so Beth is just like, well, you know what, you could leave, and Rip is just like, no, like I've been loyal here. I've been here for a long time, And so Beth is like, yeah, and look where it's gotten you. Like, look where your loyalty has gotten you, just like back and just being a hand. And so Rip is like, well, yeah, look at what all it's gotten to me. Isn't it awful? Like this whole massive place. So like there's this kind of like back and forth between Rip and like really with Beth there's no convincing Rip to just kind of move on or do something else because this is all that he's known for far too long. So but going back to Jimmy and Avery and why I wanted to go into that because that kind of feels like on the transitioning of that scene. So because they're going and Casey's to say that they are to possibly go and break down certain fences so that way they can move certain cattles through. So Jimmy and Avery are to get certain things to uh, make up for the fact that they're going to cut those parts of the fence. So they're grabbing like barbed wire and they're grabbing other things. And so Jimmy is to, of course, go and grab this barbed wire to give to Avery, and so like Avery is just gonna mention like, hey, I can grab this stuff, and like it's not that heavy, and so Jimmy's just like, well, like you don't have gloves on, so shut up. It's like it's not a like, oh, who's stronger or whatever. No, it's just like I have gloves on, you don't, so suck it. You're gonna be the one that's gonna have to move this stuff a certain way. So boo hoo. So Jimmy is to go off into the store to go and buy things, and so all of a sudden Jimmy is to meet up, I guess, with some previous associates of his that were to be Ray. And immediately when I saw Ray here, I'm like, oh my god, this was a guy from Prison Break. Like, I remember this guy. Where he used to, like, I think there's one episode in Prison Break where he sang the one, like, John Denver song, but he, like, I think he changed the words somewhere where he's like, country ho, take me home to the place I belong, or something like that. Take me home, country ho, or something like it was some weird, goofy like change that he made when he was talking to this girl, making his way home supposedly. So Ray, I guess, is to be like Ray and this guy named Blake were going to this store to buy certain kind of uh, items that all of a sudden cops were coming in and scoping out the place. And so these guys dropped this cart and walked off. So when Jim is to make his way to the store, Ray is to stop Jimmy and be like, hey, you're going to buy me these items to make up for like the past or something that he owed him. So Jimmy is to go off and is to be tempted to go and buy those items, but he walks out of that store not getting those items. And so Ray is now ticked. Ray is chasing after Jimmy. Uh, Jimmy like quickly rushes to this truck and is to, of course, like this guy is breaking into Jimmy's door, and so Avery is now spraying mace into these guys' faces, even Jimmy himself. And so we transition here to have Lloyd asking what the heck happened, like why are they cleaning this truck? And Avery is to explain about the whole mace situation. And so he's like, okay, all right, like I think Avery is just to mention that there was some like can of spray that got into the truck, and so like she made up some goofy excuse. So Lloyd is like, okay, we'll just like do the best you can, clean it up, and he ends up walking off. So now that that's covered, so because we have very little of actual like characters being put in here. Uh, so let's cover Casey. So since I covered Monica and how like she was to go off uh, to her swimming instructor, and her swimming instructor was trying to put the hands on her. Casey goes home, and so now like Casey is to go to Monica's new place. Just like, how can you afford this? And so Monica is to tell him like, well, hey, I went and took this teaching job. And he's like, okay. So Casey's to go and give Monica money. And so Tate is to show Casey, like, hey, like, this is my new digs kind of thing. And Casey's like, well, that's great. So, but then Casey's to give Monica money. And so Casey's to say, like, you know what, I don't know what else to be besides be like your husband. Like, I don't know, like, what this means. And so like it kind of feels like these two characters like don't know what they're really doing right now, and so like I'm assuming eventually they're gonna figure it out. They're gonna figure out how to just kind of either do whatever they want to do or just kind of win back what they're going to try to win back, because I think Monica is to mention it's like, well, hey, like Monica really wanted Casey to just kind of fight for something, whatever it was. Like she just wanted him to just fight for something, and it doesn't feel like Casey is just doing that. It feels that Casey is just kind of going with the flow of things, and whatever's the easiest, like that's what he's kind of going for. So, like that kind of just finishes up what really happens to Casey in this episode, besides eventually the family all going to dinner, but I'll cover that in a second here. So Jamie is to go to Governor Perry's office, and so Jamie, I don't even think I need this, because there's really not any new characters that I need to really cover here, so I'll shut my phone off. Great. It's easy for once. So because the only new characters is the Beck family, and I already know who, like, the Beck brothers. Like, that's easy, right? So, Jamie is to go into Governor Perry's office, and so Rainwater is to be there, like, hey, here's your way of funding. And Jamie's like, well, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to have Rainwater fund me. And Rainwater's like, well, it's like an easy thing. Like, I'm gonna want certain tribal issues being addressed, and so you're gonna be that guy. So Jamie's like, I don't know. So Jamie turns around and is to go on to Beth to ask her for guidance, because Jamie is to tell Beth, it's like, well, hey, like I'm getting funded by Rainwater. like if like if you kind of tell me like where to choose where to go, then I'll go there, but like I'm gonna get funded by Rainwater. So Beth ends up telling like Jamie that like he kind of reeks of desperation, hence probably the title of this episode, and that Jamie is going to get corrupted, as well as any number of people that ends up going down with him. And so he'd be better off to just kind of like stop what he's doing and just kind of like either go back home or do something else. Like he needs to just kind of pull back before he sinks too far deep into this. So let's cover the Jenkins situation. So Jenkins is to make a deal with Rainwater, and so all of a sudden that is to bump onto the radar of the Bex brothers. And so the Bex brothers are to go off to Jenkins and is to mention like, well, hey, like that's great that you're putting this whole like casino together, but like you're gonna do it without a liquor license because one of the Beck brothers is to control that. So they're basically saying that like, hey, like this establishment, your liquor license is now to be pulled from that, and also from the casino. So suck it, because like we're just gonna make your life miserable until you decide to go on and work with us to build our casino, and then we're willing to do that. And so these guys end up going and walking off, and Jenkins is like, well, hey guys, you want to play like hardball? We're going to play hardball, I guess. So I guess Jenkins has some counter or some kind of something to that effect of after he's to talk to these Beck guys. So John is to go off and is to go and speak with Governor Perry. And so it seems that John and her are going to like go and seemingly starts to sleep with one another, but then all of a sudden they pull back, and Governor Perry is just start to realize that she like still like misses her husband, and it's hard to like fall for John when she's still thinking in the back of her mind about her old flame. And so also Governor Perry is to really just ask John like, when is the last time ever that you really just sat down at the dinner table and just asked your kids like how their day was? Not what they did, not what they accomplished for you, just like straight up just like how was their day. Like in a common sense, was it good? Did it suck? Did you hate every bit of it? And so John has realized that he has probably never really done that. So when Beth and Casey are to make it to the dinner table, that's immediately what John does, is to ask them like, hey, how's your day? And so Beth starts rattling off all the things that she accomplished for John, and John's like, that's not what I meant. Is like, how was your day? And so Beth is to mention how like her being sober is like a pain in the butt. And so now John is like, okay, Casey, your day? And so Casey's like, well, I'm not going to talk about it. And so John's like, well, it doesn't really seem that you're going to be talking about much anytime soon. So, and that's when Jamie is to arrive and just be like, hey, like I resigned from my position. And so John is just like, okay. So John ends up walking off, and he's starting to like get all teary eyed, and he mutters something that I can't quite hear, and then the episode ends up fading off into black and onto credits. So, with that said, I think I've covered most of this episode, but there's probably something somewhere that probably slipped in the cracks because there's probably a lot of stuff to have probably covered in this episode. Yeah, I think that is legitimately it. It only took me 20 minutes. Great. I feel good about that. Um, yeah, I think I always have that like second guessing where I'm just like immediately I'm probably going to stop this video and I'm going to have like 30 things that I completely forgot to mention. So if that does happen, that's of course an easy fix because there's always this thing called a rebuttal that I can go into the next time I review this. So like I'm also just trying to test the waters because like it was kind of weird how like season one did like consistently gangbusters, and then all of a sudden season two it's just kind of like it faded off. I'm like, so is this gonna be like Teen Wolf uh where Teen Wolf like the first season did really well, and then there was nowhere to really just progress after that, which is perfectly fine because when really looking at it, like some people probably want to know the consensus or whatever the feelings of certain people the first season, and then after that, it's like, meh. Like, it's either people want to know the show or got to know the show, and so that's all they were really interested in, just the early stages of the show. So, with that said, I think I'm going to call this one a wrap. So, because I was trying to rattle off and just think of anything before. Yeah, I think it's all covered. I think I got it. So, with that said, goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.